I wrote this in college and it's called The Latch. I hope you enjoy it. Really moved me. I loved it back then, so I'm going to say now. There once was this cute little boy. He was sweet, innocent, and full of hope. He went off to college and had a lot of fun, but his college was far away and had to leave his family. He came from a small country rural area where things were simple, sweet, and clean. It was a small town, and they all knew each other, and most importantly, they were all similar to him. They were all open, free, and kind. They all lived simple lives, working hard and taking it easy. He hugged his mom and dad goodbye, and they watched their son go off to college. He was going away to grow up. The next few years of his life were going to shape him and hopefully turn him into the kind of man, the kind of person his parents had wished of him. As he did too, but just hadn't thought about it yet. "Goodbye, son," said the father to his son. The mother just smiled in tears and hugged her son tightly. And as she did so, he took in a whiff of his mother's essence, the perfume she uses, her warmth, and her love. "Goodbye and thank you," said the son. "Goodbye and thank you." And so he left. The son was very excited and enjoyed learning everything. He made friends quickly, although I suppose people come from all places in college. People could tell he was just a little different. Not different bad, but I guess the rural was scented on him. For most people lived the fast-paced life as opposed to him. But that didn't matter. They were all friends and they all had bunches of fun. By the end of the 4 years, they learned a lot. They rubbed off on each other and the They rubbed off on each other, and the fast-paced people learned how to take time out and literally smell the roses. They were happy, and so was the son. The son finally had met friends who enjoyed smelling the roses with him. And also, these people showed him a lot of things in life, which quite sincerely, he had absolutely no idea about and on. Meanwhile, his parents wrote to their son letters randomly every so often wishing him well and telling him to keep strong. The son was always happy to receive these letters. He liked the genuine feeling of paper. He could envision how his father had to drive out to the country general store to buy paper, come home, write it out with his wife, and then go back out to mail it out. And then go back out to mail it at the post office that day or the next. The son could always smell his mother on the scented paper. She didn't do this on purpose, but somehow it always turned out so. And then one day, sometime in the last semester, he received a call. "Your father has been in an accident," said his mom, as she tried to keep it together. He heard his mother's pain, and he suddenly felt an unbearable churn in his stomach, and felt like he was going to throw up. It can't be true. It can't be. But everything's going to be all right. So he dropped everything and took the next flight back home. He didn't travel as much back home to save money, and plus, he was having fun growing up. But anyways, By the time he got home, his father had passed away. He was back home in the small, humble house he grew up in. And at that moment, in front of his mother, and then, he learned his father had not died of natural causes. He was robbed. On his way to the local general store in town, the father was taken over by a robber with a gun. He told him to get into the trunk of the car. In fear for his life, he listened, and he was about to get in. The robber said, "Wait." Then he pointed the gun and shot 2 holes at the back of the truck. "Now, get in," he said. Then he did. "Please, I have a family. Don't hurt me. Take anything you want, please." Then he closed the trunk and heard it slam shut. He realized those 2 holes were air holes, and his father, being a bit elderly now, was not as young and as vigorous to be able to breathe as well. And so, soon thereafter, in the back of his own trunk, he passed away. And as he heard this story, the real story of how it happened from his mother, he was stricken with an inconsolable sadness and maybe even anger. The police called and asked him about the car. The son said, "Wait, don't take it away." He had to see it for himself, and so he went. He found the car, his father's old car. It looked just the same as he remembered it. As he looked and moved closer to the trunk, he saw the 2 air holes. He opened the trunk and saw the empty spot where his father must have lied. Then he got in and asked his friend to close it. He had to know. He just had to know what his father's last moments on earth felt like. He had to. And so, his friend closed it and heard the latch click. The son took a moment and absorbed it all in. How his father must have feared for his life. How he tried to stick his fingers through the hole to somehow open the latch, but being so old, his heart gave way. The son began to tear in silence. "Dad." And then he heard his friend. "Hey, you're close to the latch, but you're doing it wrong. It's over here. The opposite direction, a little to the left." And then the son tried, and the trunk popped open. His father was close to freedom, but just had been pushing the wrong way. He could still be here with him now, by his side, to guide him, to smile with him, to shake his hand. He would still be here. He would still, had it not been for the friend who was on the outside, to just simply show him and tell him what he saw. He would never have made it or known. But it was so simple. And then the real absurdity of it all just panged in his mind. It was here, and at that very moment something changed and clicked inside. Much like life, we are all stuck in the trunk, in some form or another. But if someone was just kind enough to tell them, to share whatever they know, or see the insight they have from having a different perspective, a life could be changed. A life could be saved. A life, a precious life. How it was just all so simple. It was so simple, and from that moment on, he vowed. He vowed for as long as he lives, he would never let anything like this happen to anyone ever again. He vowed and made a promise to God that very night in tears. He would devote his life to this. He would be the one, like his friend, to give other people that perspective. It's not that they're doing anything wrong. Just a difference in degree makes all the difference. A difference in a life. It's the very difference between night and day, between life or death. And this is how he was reborn. This boy who came from the middle of nowhere. This boy who didn't know too much about worldly things. This boy who only ever had heart, true and real heart in life. For he didn't come from money or status or anything that all people value. He came from love, the pure love of his mother and father. And in that moment, he found his fire. He became a man. So what'd you think? I wrote this in college, and I remember just thoroughly enjoying this terribly. Rather, it really struck something inside of me. Because having gone through that heart-opening experience, just to recap, when we experience a heart-opening experience, kind of like when you give birth to your child or have a real high emotional event where your mind kind of slows and stills, and then this kind of like whoosh, kind of like that. It's just like that. It's just like whoosh. No, but really, it's really just like that. We experience moments like that in all the old writings and cultures and whatever, Satori, enlightenment, and there's so many more words, but whatever, but we're in the here and now, and in the here and now, it's heart opening for me, because it is, in its simplest, purest form, and every other word out there kind of just, though it sounds so mystical and magical, and frankly, who wouldn't want more of that, but it puts like a label on it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like a label, as if it's something outside of yourself, or something foreign, or something from a different culture, but it's not. It's an internal, inward, infound experience. It's frankly who you are when this quiets and this opens. Honest to God, it's that simple. And yes, you realize it's just really a matter of perspective and a difference of a degree. Everything in this life is a difference of a degree. It's like for all the high achievers or people who work hard, it's not that we don't work. Everything is always a hairline fracture distinction away. It is. And then apply that to, enlightenment or heart opening, heart awakening to who you are, which you already are. It's always just a difference of degree. And once you feel that difference, come around it, it's like, I wonder why, if I had started YouTube back then, or like video or making videos on this, frankly, I certainly wrote about it, but God, there'd be a lot of good material, because it really is that fascinating. I was so determined and obsessed. I wanted to know what I wanted to know, and I wanted it, and you just don't care. And I didn't. I wanted to know, I needed to know what I needed to know, and I would have nothing less. I wanted to go back home. in the deepest way possible, in every way possible. Only in hindsight, you realize you're already there. Which, yes, I laugh about now. The other day I was on a Zoom call and he said something like, "You talk about such esoteric things." And I'm like, no. It is not esoteric. It is human-centric. This is about our mutual and shared humanity, and nothing more and nothing less. It's our connection with ourself, which then allows us to take that journey inward and then outward. And should we carry a faith, then that faith strengthens and heightens even more so to every single degree imaginable in the purest way, where your heart opens even more. Can you imagine your love for God, but then it cracks open even more. Andrew Harvey, in my long searching phase, way back when I really needed to know and wanted to know what was going on, he talked about when your heart opens and breaks. And when someone hears that you're heartbreaking, you think, oh, and yeah, I would too, I swear. But in the subject matter of this, when your heart breaks open, not due to external pain or whatever, or if that's so, then yeah, but when the love breaks you, because it's so overflowing, it literally cracks, breaks, and gets bigger, and then cracks and breaks and gets bigger, and so forth. But in that process, you're melted and you're a pile of mush, mush. You're a pile of mush. And you just want to sit there and soak and ooze in the pile of like gooey mushiness of the wellspring of love you have just found and discovered for yourself through intention, devotion, focus. Oh, God. Anyway, out of all the spiritual people, I never once heard anyone talk about the sheer disgusting beauty of things, because that's very important to discuss. I mean, for goodness sakes, because that is a part of our humanity. Not about the how-to, though that's important. The true, real, raw experience. And sharing that particular experience, and with all its messiness and intoxication. Yes, intoxication. And what are you really even intoxicated over? It's just yourself and life and God, because there's finally no barrier. When there's no barrier anymore, it's just like, yeah, you do that a lot. You just you have a deep breath in and out, and you just want to sit there and enjoy and soak in the purity of the moment wherever you are. Doesn't matter who we are and where we are. When our sense of being, our consciousness can come to that point of connection, surrender, all of that, it's like you're so grateful to be alive. Grateful to have this experience. Grateful, like grateful. You could even get like a grateful like sticker and stamp on your head. but it's like that. But it's like that. Because you honest to God feel that way. Because it's only with that energy that your heart can finally break open. In that sense, when you're overflowing with love and you melt. So yes, everyone, I think nearly everyone discusses the intellectual side of spirituality. We will discuss the feeling side of humanity. I'm exploring this, but when it's for the service of exploration and fun and joy, how delightful it can be. I don't know, but beyond that, you know what? A writer has to write, you know? And then a writer has to talk. And then a writer is not a writer. And a writer is an artist, because that writer let his or her heart go and allowed it to be seen by himself, herself, and then sharing that inner experience. That's an artist. Beyond that, that's a human being. A human being who shares. My golly. Yeah. Anyway,